Let's
All
go. All
right.
right,
This is
man.
the Domestic Draft
Man,
Podcast. I'm Evan Bierman here with Dan Slug. How's it going, Dan?
not too bad.
What are you sipping on there?
I have a blonde ale from Duckfoot Brewery out here. It's called the Looker. And let me tell you about the beer, and then I'll tell you about the brewery. The beer just says their version of the classic refreshing American blonde ale. It's brewed with pale and caramelized malts, giving it a subtle biscuity note. It does have that like biscuity note, I guess you would call it. It is just like your classic blonde ale. A dash of Cascade hops adds a pleasant floral note to complement the bright finish and soft malt taste complement. But this brewery, it's rather new. It started around like 2014 out in Encinitas, and it started when the founder actually got diagnosed with celiac disease, Matt Del Vecchio. So he got diagnosed with celiac disease. He was a financial planner in New York at the time, and just kind of, I don't know, I guess wanted to like change his career or do something different, and got in touch with a home brewer that was brewing for like 20 years on his own. His name's Brett Goldstock. They got together, came up with this idea to make kind of a brewery where 100% of their beers are gluten reduced. So not gluten free, but gluten reduced. And this is kind of their market and what they're known for. And it's a rather like new kind of discovery to make gluten reduced beer. It was in 2013. This lab, White Labs, started selling something called Clarity Firm, which is a natural enzyme the brewers could add to the barley. And that would basically attack the gluten and leave only like a few parts per million. So that's the thing. They don't go in like gluten-free brewing categories when at beer festivals. They go into the mainstream because they think their flavors are that good. And it is good. It's not bad. What about you?
It's actually very scientific.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm drinking a sliced Nectarine IPA. This is from Moody Tongue Brewing. It's got a 3.66 on Untapped, 5.9%. It's basically like a quintessential IPA, hoppy first and foremost, the subtle nectarine flavor on the back end, very easy drinking. But I'm excited to have one of these on the pod. Finally, I've been hearing great things about this spot. If you don't know Moody Tongue, they are the world's first 2 Michelin star brewery, and they're right here in Chicago. So they were founded in 2014. Yeah, that's right. Moody Tongue is built on the philosophy of culinary brewing, appealing to those with a discerning palate, or as the brewmaster describes, a moody tongue, air quotes. In 2019, the brewery relocated and expanded to launch 2 all-new dining concepts. They have a casual a la carte tasting room called The Bar, and an upscale intimate fine dining restaurant, which is called The Dining Room. Both led by 10-time Michelin-starred executive chef Jared Wentworth, and achieving 2 stars in the 2021 Michelin Guide for Chicago. So pretty happening spot. You're talking at least a few weeks out to book a dinner reservation for 2 at minimum, but it's down on South Wabash, not far from Rico Benes, if you're familiar with that area of the city.
Yeah.
This is a good beer though. Pick it up if you're at the local liquor store.
You got a date there already reserved in the future?
I'm looking,
Looking.
trying to find the right time. Might be looking a month out.
All right, man. Let's get into it. Our Bears here pretty much ended John Gruden's career, I think. I think it was the Bears' victory that, no, I'm kidding. But they did beat the Raiders, which was thought to be a tough game, a tough matchup on the road in Vegas. We're down David Montgomery, and we come out with the 20-9 victory, man. What are some of your thoughts on the game?
I mean, Fields got the job done on the road. It was a good Raiders team. I think a lot of people, picking this game before the Bears headed out there would have picked the Raiders. Ended up being John Gruden's last game as head coach. But the defense, the Bears defense allowed just 1 touchdown. Pretty damn good. They're looking sharp this year. They might be leading the league in sacks. Don't quote me on that, but they're up there. Khalil Herbert and Damian Williams combined to rush for 139 yards. And Santos made some clutch field goals in the 4th quarter. 2nd straight win, first road win of the season. Mack also had a good game with a sack, 7 solo tackles. Little trivia question here for you. Who was Fields' first passing touchdown to?
That would be the Ivy League grad Jesper Horsted.
Whichever
remembers what preseason game number 4, he had like 3 touchdowns. Everyone knows Jesper.
Yeah. So the Bears moved to 3-2. I mean, it was a good win. not going to say Fields jumped off the
No.
stat sheet by any means. I think he'll get there, but it's a work in progress for him. He also left the game for briefly with the hyperextended knee, it looked like.
Yep.
So thankfully, doesn't look too bad. I think he'll be all right.
Yeah, I think
for
he'll be
next
good.
week. So
Yeah, it was a good game. I think the Bears are starting to find their identity with Laser calling the plays here, which is like smash mouth football. They're running the ball. They're letting their offensive line attack instead of retreat and do pass blocking. And I think that's where they're at their best. It also helps a rookie quarterback really just hand it off a couple times, then do some play action, some rollouts, some RPOs. And I thought Herbert looked really good, like surprisingly good. I was all ready for the Damian Williams game, and Herbert went out. He had like 74 rushing yards. It was running strong too, running through tackles. So that's promising. The defense is looking good. It was Cleo Mack's revenge game. Also Gibson, did you see his Instagram tag and post?
no,
He posted a photo on his Trevon Gibson posted a photo on Instagram of him sacking Chris Carr or Derek Carr, tagged him in it. Like the location was like Savage Land or something like that, and just like went like used car shopping over the weekend, something like that. Just like, all right, we're getting a little nasty, we're getting a little mean, and I think that's what like we needed something because we didn't have an identity, we didn't know who we were, and now we're like a kind of a smash mouth. Let's get mean on defense. Let's run the ball, and let's have our young stud quarterback kind of just make the plays that he has to make, but not win because of them. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I'm happy that the whole, is Fields going to be the starter and that whole like dance that you're doing in the beginning of a season when you have a rookie quarterback, like I feel like that's behind everybody now. And so, maybe we don't need to hear that as often. And now it's more about like how the team's looking rather than like, is he going to start next week kind of, talk. So, and yeah, Khalil Herbert, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. Like out carried Williams even 18-16. He played more snaps than Williams. Williams was the clear goal line guy and looked more involved in the passing game, but those two as a 1-2 punch, they look fine with Montgomery out. So I think the Bears are looking good. It was a good win. They moved to 3-2. So let's look forward to week 6 here.
Yep.
And we'll
I was going to bring that up and lead in. It's a tough week for them. It's Packers week.
Yeah.
So, if you're a Bears fan, Packers week is, I don't know. It's filled with anticipation. You get excited, but also in the back of the mind, you're always just like, God damn it. Aaron Rodgers, they are wearing their classic throwback. So I'm excited for the week 6 matchup for the Bears. I think they're going to win. So with that being said, you want to go over the week 6 pick 'em?
Yeah, let's do it. What's your record so far this year?
Yeah, not too shabby actually. So if you've been paying attention, I've been doing my pick'ems every single week. Last week I went 12-4. It brings my overall record here to 51-29. So
it's pretty solid.
Send me some tips if you're winning some money based on my picks. I'd appreciate it. But let's go week 6. Yeah.
All right. So let's jump into Thursday night is the Bucks at the Eagles.
Bucks.
Tampa Bay. Bucks. Dolphins at Jags is going to be the first Sunday game. It looks like that's an 8:30 a.m.
Gross game.
London game, of course. Gross game.
Dolphins at Jags in London.
Yeah.
Let me go Dolphins Jaguars. I feel like Jaguars have a lot of fans over there in London because they're there every year.
I'm going to go Dolphins. I think the Jags are terrible. Chiefs at Washington.
Man, Chiefs are struggling here a little bit, but Washington's not a bad matchup to get right. So let's go Chiefs.
Yep, Chiefs. Rams at Giants.
Rams.
Yep, that's a no-brainer. Texans at Colts. Both 1-4.
Do you see like Jim Irsay came out? He's like, I guarantee 2 championships in the next decade. Colts fans.
Jesus.
They looked decent. They just totally shit the bed last night. I'll go Colts.
Yeah, I think I'm taking the Colts there as well. Bengals at Lions.
Bengals. All aboard Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Packers at Bears.
6 weeks in a row, Bears.
Chargers at Ravens.
Dang, Chargers. Chargers look like the best team in football right now.
Yeah, Chargers are looking great. I'm going to go Chargers as well. Vikings at Panthers.
Vikings.
Ooh, I'm taking the Panthers there. Cardinals at Browns.
Cardinals.
Yep, Cardinals are looking damn good. Only 5-0 team. Raiders at Broncos.
There's no, I mean, I don't wait, hold on. I was going to say Broncos, but maybe this is a All right, you got the interim coach. All the attention is going to rally the team together. Let's go Raiders.
I think I'm taking the Broncos because they're at home too. I think it's tough to travel there sometimes. Cowboys at Patriots.
Cowboys. Team's rolling.
Yeah, Cowboys look good. Seahawks at Steelers is a night game.
Man, that's tough without Russ. They got Geno Smith there.
Yeah.
And Steelers just won last week. At Pittsburgh, you said?
Yep.
Yeah, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh. And then the Monday night game is the Bills at the Titans.
Bills. They're up there with the Chargers as one of the best in the league.
Yeah, Bills look great. Good call on that.
All right, so let's move it into your corner, Evans waiver wire Wednesday. Who we got? Who we picking up?
Yeah, so the last few weeks, we've been talking about Chuba and Sony. Let's do a quick update on that. Chuba had a hell of a game.
Finally.
He's up to 41.8 PPR points, and Sony had a nice week as well. I scored a touchdown, 26.3. So I'm looking pretty silly right there. But let's move into the waiver wire Wednesday.
As you have all year.
McCaffrey should be back this week. But let's start with quarterbacks. I mean, you mentioned Geno Smith. To me, there's nothing really worth mentioning here that we haven't talked about in the last few weeks. Deeper leagues, maybe Geno Smith, but I wouldn't chase that. If you have Russell Wilson that you lost, somebody like Carson Wentz who plays the Texans this week, if you're desperate, that's not a bad pickup. I'd rather have him than I think Geno Smith. Moving over to running backs, Devonte Booker played 88% of the snaps after Barkley went down. He had an ankle injury. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a lengthy absence, but you're essentially getting a workhorse. So I'd pick him up if he's available out there. It might be just a week or two, but you're going to get a guy that's going to play pretty much the whole game. Daryl Williams, CEH, also went down, was placed on IR today. Keep in mind the Chiefs are also checking in on possible Marlon Mack trade. And CEH's injury, which was an MCL sprain, isn't reportedly going to sideline him for too long, maybe 3 to 5 weeks. Williams is a strong pickup if available. I mean, even if they get Mack, he's going to take a couple weeks to learn the offense. So, look for Daryl Williams to be a top pickup this week. Khalil Herbert, like we mentioned, actually out carried Damian Williams this week, and Williams was the top ad last week. So if Khalil Herbert's available, I think he's a strong ad. He's a big part of the Bears running game while Montgomery's still sidelined for a few more weeks. Another guy to mention here is Ramondre Stevenson. He's first in line after Damian Harris went down. Harris returned to the game, then exited again in the fourth and never came back. So I don't really know what the injury looks like there. And I'm sure the Patriots will be super transparent about that anyways.
Yeah. He's got a something. He's got a leg.
Yeah. So he's got a leg. But yeah, I mean, Stevenson, not a bad ad if he's out there and none of these other guys are available and you need a running back. Wide receiver pickups, Kadarius Toney looks quick. But I like him as a pickup if Galladay got hurt, if he's still out, and the rest of the Giants wide receivers, Shepard, Slayton, they're all banged up. So if he's the only guy out there, he looks good and he's the only guy. So he's worth a pickup. Rashad Bateman didn't play this week, but he should be back next week. And the Ravens passing game's looking good. He's a first round rookie, was a stud in college. So I've been trying to stash him. He's probably available on the waiver wire. Pittman, we mentioned last week. He's probably not available at this point. He's been a stud all year, but if he is, he's leading all Colts receivers in snaps and just looking like a stud this year. So I would scoop him up. Emanuel Sanders led the Bills wide receivers in snaps this week and is feasting with teams shading coverage towards Diggs. He might be available on your waiver wire as well. I would look for him. And then moving over to tight ends, Hunter Henry led all Patriots in receiving categories in week 5, finished with 8 targets, 6 catches, 75 yards, and a touchdown. Played most of the snaps at tight end. He's worth a pickup if you need a tight end. And Evan Ingram, if all those Giants wide receivers are still out, I mean, he's a good pass catcher. He could get the job done there. But as far as fab goes, I think if you need a running back, those guys, Booker and Williams and Herbert, spend your fab on them. The rest of the wide receivers, if Pittman's available, I would spend a little bit more on him, but the rest of them, I don't know. So that's the waiver wire column this week.
All right, man. Some good ones there. I think my favorite is Pittman. I was just saying I dropped him. Unfortunately, I was going for an ad for a running back at a wide receiver heavy team and dropped him. But a solid week this week in fantasy for our team, which can kind of segue us into the next segment. We got two guests that we're about to bring on, and we faced them this week in our fantasy football league of podcasts. And it's Trevor and Josh from the 2 Pointers podcast. So let's go ahead and bring them on. And of course, we'll start with asking how they liked the loss that we gave them this week in fantasy football.
Josh, let me just say this first, just to be on record, because you guys brought us in, and I'll use your exact quote, was to diversify your portfolio here in a league. And the basketball podcast going into week 5 was the most points for, and was first. I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everyone. Now, not going to discredit the absolute whooping we got this week, but we've changed our name from the 2 Pointers podcast to the All Injured Reserve podcast. So we are now fully caught back up here, and we're 4-1. I feel pretty good moving forward. But Josh, any breakdown of this week? Any thoughts? Any guys we need that we don't have?
I mean,
we're in trouble.
Luck's got to run out at some point, right? I mean, you win the first 4 that you probably shouldn't win, and I mean, I don't feel good going forward because Chris Carson's hurt and Alvin Kamara's on the bye, so we're probably not going to do that well this week either. But we'll see what happens.
Just had to start with that little bit of notion.
We
there,
knocked you guys off the pedestal. You guys were in first place, so we just had to bring that up.
I mean,
honestly,
we are still in first place. So
that's true.
That's true. You are still 4-1. We moved up to 6 now.
Hey, look out.
So we're climbing up there.
Yeah.
We were like 13th and 10. Now we're up to 6, 3-2. We're looking stronger as the weeks go on here, and don't have too many injuries, thankfully. But yeah, you guys are still in first, actually. So good call on that. But we were the first team to take you down. So
yeah.
For context, for anybody that might not follow us on social media from you guys, and just for context on what the lineup looks like this week, just based on injury and based on the fact that Jerry Jeudy's still not back, and bye weeks, is we are starting. Dak looks great as ever, playing against my god-awful Patriots. We got Terry McLaurin, Cole Beasley, Mark Ingram, Chris Carson, if he feels better on that neck injury, Noah Fant, and Jared Cook. Yes, you heard that right. We are starting 2 tight ends this week, going full heavy with the Chargers scoring 47 again against the Browns, I guess. I don't know.
So, yeah. 2 tight ends is always a tough look.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for hopping on, guys. You mentioned you had a beer in the pre-show. What do you are you drinking there?
So we are guys that are from the Raleigh-Durham area, North Carolina. People are probably like, "Where's that?" It's the obviously the capital of our great state of North Carolina. I have not had a chance to visit these guys here, but I've got one from Big Boss Brewing, CB. It's a CB Goss Tangerine Raspberry. I'm more of a sour guy.
Nice.
And haven't had just tried this. It's the first time trying it.
Right on. So yeah, before we kind of get into everything, go ahead, and you mentioned you're from North Carolina. Give our listeners just a little bit of background information. If you're listening to our podcast, we were on their show about 3-4 weeks ago. We did some Bulls trivia, their basketball podcast. So Trevor, Josh, go ahead and tell our listeners kind of like your podcast, where to find you, and how you guys got started.
Yeah, so kind of like you guys, we were just friends who were looking into how to stay connected with each other and just a way to talk about basketball. We both grown up in North Carolina, kind of in the Tobacco Road area. I ended up actually going to college at UNC, so been kind of through the large college basketball rivalry. But we focus a lot on mostly reviewing the NBA, talking extensively about our favorite teams. Me talking about the Charlotte Hornets, and Trevor waxing lyrically about the Lakers and whether or not LeBron and AD are going to play that day, and kind of go through how we think things are going to go. Trevor, you want to plug the socials in?
Oh, is this the part where we shameless plug?
Go for it.
Yeah. All right. Let's see if of course, I'm 3 for 3 now with weeks, not messing this up. Let's see if I can not mess this up for a 4th week in a row. Hello, everyone on Evan and Dad's In from the Jurassic Trap podcast. If you could follow us anywhere you find podcasts, of course, as well as if you aren't already following Evan and Dan, please do that. It's at the 2 Pointers podcast on TikTok. at 2 Pointers on Twitter and facebook.com/the 2 Pointers podcast. Did I miss anything?
Sound good to me. Josh, I got to ask, I'm curious, since you went to UNC, while you were there, best player on the team, favorite player on the team?
Ooh.
I like that.
Favorite one's probably the easy one. I'd say Luke May.
I probably knew that.
I was there in
answer ahead of time.
2017, so I just remember all of the vivid title run.
Gotcha.
In the big shot against Kentucky. The best overall player on the team while he's there, I think, was Justin Jackson. Looking back now, Cameron Johnson's probably developed into that best player, but I think
Phoenix, right?
Jay Jacks was probably the best player that I saw on the team, like in college.
Nice. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk NBA. We're coming up here in like a week almost until this NBA season starts. A lot of storylines hitting, social media, hitting the news. Let's start with Ben Simmons. Just showed up yesterday in Philadelphia. I guess the GM didn't even know that he was there. There's a text like, hey, by the way, Ben's here. He needs a COVID test. What is going on? Is he going to play for the 76ers?
I'm just going to be upfront like I have been all year. I rebel talking about the 76ers, but I also will say that, no, I don't still believe he plays. I think he showed up for the sense of, I think it's the trade value thing. I don't really understand it though. I want to say it's trade value, but then I also want to be like, Rich Paul and him, I don't think are on the same page right now. Ben wants to be in Cali. Rich Paul wants him to make more money and play. I don't understand the conundrum. To answer your question, no, I don't think he plays in Philadelphia this year. If he does, it's not past February 15th, that's the trade deadline.
Does he play this year?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, my answer is going to go back and forth every week. And right now, I want to say no, because I just don't see a situation where they just play him on night one. I just don't get how that makes sense. I guess at the end of the day, it's just a matter of, do they want to capitalize now? It's Daryl. You got to remember, this is Daryl Morey we're talking about,
right?
Dork Elvis, as they say. And he's not going to take 3/4 for $1. He's just not. He never has. He never will. So unless Ben's like, yeah, I'll just play, I just don't see a situation where he does.
Disagree. I think he's going to play.
Yeah.
I'm kind of at that point now. I didn't think he was going to show up at all, but now that he's there, and given that it seems like a trade's just not possible because Philadelphia is looking for a price tag that is higher than what New Orleans got for Anthony Davis, and
right,
everyone knows Ben Simmons is not worth that. He's not going to get traded unless Philadelphia backtracks and lowers their price. Now that he's there, I feel like, now that he's come in, it seems like he's going to play. He wouldn't show up for, other than to maybe collect a couple of those training camp paychecks. Like, I feel like we're like a week away before the start of the season. He's got to be there to play, probably just to not lose the money for the year.
Yeah, I draw a lot of parallels to the Aaron Rodgers situation, to where it was like coming out, he's never playing a game ever for the Packers ever again. And then wait a minute, he showed up. Oh, okay. He doesn't need any preseason games. And now he's starting, right? And he's played every game so far. So yeah, I think he'll play too. We'll see. We'll have to monitor that one. It's a strange situation. I saw Daryl Morey out there is also like, there's chatter and smoke about looking at any way possible to get a James Harden. And with, we can move right in with the Kyrie news over. He's not playing. I wonder what is Brooklyn doing over there, and if there's any possible way of maybe swapping those two.
Well, it's an interesting place, because I feel like, if you're Philly and Kyrie is much less likely to play basketball, although it's the much better player. But yeah, Kyrie Irving is more of a guy he has a lot of things that can keep him happy and that he cares about outside of basketball. I don't think that he's going to kind of budge on what he wants to do.
So the thing that intrigues me about the Kyrie situation is nonetheless that, one, we shouldn't have not expected this. Who are we kidding? It's Kyrie Irving.
Right.
My problem though, or my thought process is, you mentioned the Harden possible swap with Morey. I actually think a Kyrie trade's more realistic. I think at the end of the day, he's not going to play. Get him in a place where at least he's allowed to play by law, by his state's and his city's standards. And again, that's another situation where Daryl Morey's not going to take that $0.75 trade. Obviously right now, the only suitable team that's even remotely sent an offer is Minnesota. but we know that they don't want to move any of their big pieces. Minnesota's kind of been the weird like one that if they want to unite Cat and Simmons and whoever, right? And Edwards, of course. But I don't realistically know. I think this trade deadline last year is gonna be hard to beat. You guys as Bulls obviously made a great run at a couple of great acquisitions that you have now, and you'll try to make a run in the East. But I just don't know. I will say this: if you're a Bucks fan, why any Bucks fans will be listening to a Chicago podcast, I don't know. But if you're a Bucks fan out there, I think you have to be really excited that this Nets turmoil might be, Katie and Harden, that Josh and I blatantly were obvious in saying that, like, this is going to probably be a situation where the Kyrie either never plays or he plays 41% of 41 games out of the 82 game schedule.
Right.
So I think if you're a Bucks fan, you're thrilled. If you're a Heat fan, you're even more thrilled because that's a defensive team that can really take down the Nets this year. And you got to be looking at Brooklyn and just watching it burn and smiling. I mean, I guess that's the only thing I can really take away from that entire situation, as we know right now, of course.
Brooklyn just always seemed like something too good to be true with those three there, and it certainly has blown up in their face, I think, ever since it began. But what about the Lakers? It looks like you're a Lakers guy based on your hat and your background and everything about you. It's like, are they the finals favorites in your opinion? Or
I'll spoil our podcast. People have had long enough now to listen to it. It's been out over a week. I picked the Lakers to win the championship, and that actually was not on the backs of being a fan. Josh had them, if I remember correctly. Josh had them in the finals as well. Because at the end of the day, don't we all want a Brooklyn Nets and a Los Angeles Lakers finals just for the storyline?
No.
Durant and LeBron never make it to the finals, so it would be great to see those two going in.
Right? Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah.
No, I'm excited because it's just there's too many things not to talk about in that. And if you're thinking, I mean, Josh and I are podcasters that do a basketball podcast. When you think Lakers Nets, I'm thinking 8 months ahead. I'm thinking like, man, look at the content. Look at KD, the Westbrook deal, the Harden thing, LeBron, AD. Like, there's too many storylines that cross paths over the last decade where I'm just like, regardless of the fan, I threw it out on the podcast. I said, yes, I'm a fan, but like, I can't look at the West and I can't look at the situations around them and go, if they're healthy and they can continue to be a good defensive team as they have been the last couple of years, I don't see a path where they don't make it, but the Nuggets scare me. And we talked about that heavily last week. The Nuggets are just the scary, like if Jamal Murray comes back and just absolutely does what he did in the bubble, 50 points per game, Jamal Murray. Yeah, we're in for a fun Western Conference playoffs, quite frankly, the entire playoffs.
So the Nuggets is interesting because Dan and I have been talking about who's going to be the next breakout star, a la Julius Randle last year, right, Dan?
I love Julius Randle.
I love Julius Randle. But the Nuggets are interesting because, you mentioned Jamal Murray. He's kind of already broken out in the bubble, like you said. But what about Michael Porter Jr. being that guy?
MPJ.
Josh,
if he's not your guy, who's your guy? If he's not your breakout star, who is your guy?
Well, I was on our podcast when I previewed it. I mentioned, Michael Porter Jr. is kind of your most improved player, dark horse, because I think if he makes a jump, he just got that big contract.
Right.
But I think he can really make the jump to Western Conference All-Star with Jamal Murray being out for about half the season. And if he does that, I think he could get there. You guys as Bulls fans are probably like what I think will probably be the biggest breakout star of the season. I think Lonzo Ball. I think his improvement kind of went unsung last season. His 3-point percentage increased drastically. He was, I think, out shooting Trae Young from three in New Orleans if no one was really paying attention.
Yep.
And to combine with the fact that shooting doesn't have to be the best part of his game, even for him to succeed because of his incredible speed and passing ability, I think he's going to wow a lot of people in Chicago.
You just made me really happy.
My favorite thing about Lonzo this year too is, like you mentioned, the 3-point shooting drastically increasing, and it did. This is the same Lonzo Ball, like I mentioned, like he's a second overall pick that we all thought was going to be at least an above average point guard in the NBA, and I think that's what's going to be highlighted this year. He's got too many playmakers around, or too many scorers, and I guess playmakers. He's the playmaker in that offense, but he's got too many guys around them that are quality players and starters and some stars. And I just think he's going to excel in that role. I'll piggyback the Julius Randle example. And I actually have Julius Randle's teammate as the most improved player. I have RJ Barrett as a guy that takes the kind of, it's a big jump. I get it. I kept looking up and down every roster and I'm like, it's such a hard award to pick. And I told Josh, it's actually my favorite award to pick because who's going to tell you you're wrong? It's like a one in 400 and some odd shot. So RJ Barrett, I believe in him too much. He's the same guy that was, like I said, a top high school recruit, the number 1 high school recruit going into college. And I just think that Knicks team is going to take a step back, and I think he'll take a step forward, and maybe that'll translate into some extra wins, maybe. But I just think RJ Barrett's that guy that's just his team is better around him, and I think he's going to have to do more. So
funny enough, we got him on our fantasy team. So there we go. Domestic draft. So I want to kind of keep going where you were at for a little bit. I had it start. I'm just curious. Y'all are out in North Carolina. You don't get the coverage that we get of our Chicago Bulls. And you were talking about Lonzo. I am pretty high on them. I've been talking that they might even finish top 5 in the East. The way I've been seeing this team come together. What are y'all's thoughts on the Bulls this coming season?
And I tell you, I like the construction of the team a lot. My biggest kind of hitch has always been with teams when they look like they come together in the off season, is how that's going to kind of translate on the court. I think the Chicago Bulls for me have probably the biggest range of any team in at least the Eastern Conference this year, because I kind of agree with you. There's that spot where they could slide up into that 5th place back of kind of those top 4 teams. I kind of feel like your Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Atlanta, and Miami are going to kind of be ahead of the pack in the Eastern Conference. But after that, it's kind of an open race there in the middle. But I think with the Bulls, if Lonzo and DeMar don't mesh in the offense as well, or if it doesn't work with Zach LaVine super well, it could detract and they could fall back into the 7 or 8 range.
Yeah. So as from you guys' perspective, obviously with Zach LaVine being a expiring contract, this season has to be successful, I think, because I think there's a lot more riding on this than just, this is the team that, if they win, they're 6 seed, they're 7 seed, they'll run it back next year. Zach might not want to do that. Zach's the same guy that's getting paid like $19.5, $20 million right now. So I think he's kind of up for that big and due contract. The way I kind of looked at it, and sorry to you guys and your listeners, but the Bulls are my 5th team. I think the top 4, and there's only one easy answer for me on that, on why is the top 4. And I said this on our Eastern Conference preview. I believe we did that first. It's now 2 weeks ago. We highlighted really like, there's a lot of things about, 15 through 8. And you're like, okay, all these teams could jump a few spots. All these teams could lose and be really bad. The thing with the East this year that's really intriguing to me is the top 4. I can give you at least one reason why they can win the East and why they cannot, and why they can win the finals and why they cannot. The Bulls, they're my see it to believe it in both sides of the East and West this year. Once I start seeing it, I'll start believing it. And I can't give you right this moment why they could win the East and why they could win the finals. Doesn't mean they can't. It's just right this moment. If we're talking preseason, the 4 teams in front of them, I can give you at least one reason for each.
Sure. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, obviously we're going to watch that team. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I think they're going to be one of the more athletic teams running fast break. And just from their preseason games, if you've seen any of the highlights, they're just like trying to throw an alley-oop at all times right now, getting out and running. A lot to do with Lonzo, a lot to do with like the players that we signed in the offseason. All right. A couple more questions here, and then we'll try to get you all out of here.
So we mentioned the fantasy basketball league that you guys put together. Dan did the draft for us. And if you took a look at our team, that is how Dan drafts fantasy basketball. He drafts it like an NBA 2K draft with the youngest guys possible that he can take. I believe we have Cunningham on the squad. And so that kind of leads us into our next question. Who do you think is the rookie of the year? Is Cunningham the runaway rookie of the year? Is there another name there?
Gosh, you want to do it like we did on the pod? 1, 2, 3, rookie of the year.
Jalen Suggs. It's one of the coolest nicknames I've heard, with Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony. J. Cole down there in Orlando.
Oh, I like that. The North Carolina tie too. I like that.
What do you think?
We kind of think that it's gonna be Cade by the end of the year. I think it may be a little bit closer than Trevor may think it is, because I think Jalen Green is that good and is going to have the ball in his hands so much in Houston. I think at the end of the day, Cade with kind of more of the hype, more of the historic basketball market is going to get the attention.
Completely agree. And I think one thing I just actually thought of right this moment that I didn't even use in that episode that we talked about all the reward predictions. It's very similar to last year, where you have a dynamic playmaker and not necessarily as much of a scorer. And you have Cade and the LaMelo comparison. LaMelo only played 43 games last year, and he won a Rookie of the Year in a shortened season nonetheless. Anthony Edwards was, creeping up into that 18, 19 points per game. And I think Jalen Green's going to do that. And I just think that's just the perfect parallel for how this year's going to go as well. I think the dynamic and the playmaking of the Cade Cunningham, Kenrich, and LaMelo there, I think he's just going to be able to do more. He has Sadiq Bey around him. He has Isaiah Stewart, Jeremy Grant. He's got a lot of great players around him. Not that Jalen Green doesn't. I just think he's going to be able to do more. And I think ultimately is going to impact his voting.
Yeah, I think him and Jeremy Grant are going to be a great connection. I think Jeremy Grant's going to have a great year as well. So that I got a question. Y'all had us on your show. We did some trivia based on your response. I'm curious. Here's some trivia for y'all.
Let's go.
If Cade Cunningham wins Rookie of the Year for the Detroit Pistons, maybe you've done this research before in previous episodes. Who is the last Detroit Piston to win Rookie of the Year?
Josh, they should know not to challenge us on trivia. I think I actually know this full blown. I think it's Grant Hill. Is it not Grant Hill? Wow, really? Oh my God. Okay. Sorry, I was too confident, Josh. I apologize. I thought it was Grant Hill. I really did. I thought that was Runaway. And now am I crazy? Who the heck could it be? Is it this era?
I don't know.
No idea. I don't have a guess outside of
all I would throw out is say Isaiah Thomas, but it's probably wrong.
So based on my research here, it is Dave Bing in the 1966-67 season out of Syracuse.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Dave Bing. My bad.
Right on the tip of your tongue there.
Yeah, it was so close.
I got my Dave Bing jersey in my closet. So.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Bing, Bernard King, whatever, close enough.
Sorry. A Rookie of the Year, Grant Hill's year was Chris Webber. Just so 1994, that was C Webb. What are we most excited about this year? Last thing I kind of wanted to bring up was the new kind of point of emphasis the referees are going to be doing this year, trying to get rid of the play where you see like a Steph Curry or James Harden do an ISO, a pump fake, get the defender in the air, and then initiate that contact looking for a foul. They're trying to make sure that play kind of gets out of basketball. That's a talking point I like to talk about. But what about y'all? What are you most excited about coming up for this new season, the 75th anniversary?
Took the words out of my mouth, the 75th anniversary. I'm waiting for that top 75 list. I'm excited. They've actually just announced this morning, the NBA's official Twitter page, that they will announce it within the first 3 games of the NBA season. So they'll kind of slow release it, kind of like the NFL does the top 100 players every year.
Mm-hmm.
So more than likely, that's what you guys will hear. Not this week, obviously, when it releases, as we're recording our episode tomorrow, but next week, we'll probably be at some point touching on that, because it's the 75 greatest players list. We weren't alive for the, spoiler on the age. We weren't alive for the top 50 when they rolled that around 25 years ago. So that's what I'm most excited about. I'm least excited about the opposite of that rule that you mentioned, about the NBA Twitter stands and how they're going to react to those calls and the fouls on Harden and Steph and whatever rule you want to call it. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. I'll probably end up muting the words Curry and Harden. I'll probably end up muting a couple words so I don't see them on Twitter this year. But 75th anniversary for sure.
To comment on that rule a little bit, I gotta be honest, I don't like the rule that much.
Okay.
Mostly because I don't feel like I've gotten a good explanation of how the referees are going to call it. Because my thought process, if you pump fake a guy and get him in the air, what is the offensive player supposed to do in that situation? Just not shoot the ball, just wait for him to come back down. It's kind of just it's a weird situation. I think it puts the offensive player more to disadvantage, and maybe that's what the NBA needs. Maybe it's skewed too far on the offensive side, but
right.
I think there's too much almost referees decision on what's going to be defensive, what's going to be offensive, what's going to be a no call, and I think we're going to see a lot of the same things get different calls probably in these first couple weeks.
I think it's going to change the game a lot, especially at the end of the game too.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, the pump fake, it kind of takes the pump fake out of the game, really.
Yeah.
That's what that's for, is to get the guy in the air so you can bump into him and get the foul. So it is going to be interesting to see how the end of games is handled, especially if you're down 3 or 4, when you're trying to draw that foul, when you're shooting the 3-pointer, you're not really going to be able to do that, I don't think. So it'll be interesting, like you said.
So from what little I've watched the preseason, it has looked very consistent in terms of the calling. However, I don't watch very much preseason, if not any. So it's just based on little things I've seen here and there. I want to kind of watch a full game within the first couple of weeks. Obviously, we're going to watch plenty, but I want to watch a full couple of games of a lot of these key guys where it seems very perimeter centric. And obviously, I think that's where they're really aiming for that. I hope it's consistent. That's all I can really ask for. It's similar to the block charge thing in college about 10, 15 years ago. So far it has seemed consistent, at least for what I can hope.
But like consistent in what way? Because I'm still confused on what would be offensive versus defensive, unless like if a defender's in the air, he can no longer be called for a defensive foul, which I just don't really think makes any sense. So I think they're left in a weird spot where I think these first couple of weeks, one of the games is going to get decided by a controversial call that the league office in their infinite wisdom will come out and say was the wrong call, because that's a great decision. And it's going to cause a lot of uproar. I'm not sure how long this rule lasts before they revise it. I think they'll revise it before the season's over.
Yeah, I mean, just from some of the things, I think they're just trying to get rid of like the egregious act of like literally launching yourself in a non-basketball move into the defender. The times I've seen it, it's just been like a no call, to where I've seen Zach do it, where he does a little step back pump, get the guy in the air and then lean into it, no call. And I wonder how many times that might take for the players to then start saying, okay, well, if they're not calling this, I got to do something else, to where it is, maybe it's a quick pass and a backdoor cut them for a layup, like a more basketball move than launching yourself into the defender is my view on it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I just like that they're doing something about it, because it started to take over. So just to try to do something. I like that view for the NBA.
Can't fix something if you don't try it, at least.
Right.
That's really where it looks down.
Who do we got winning the finals? I think we know Trevor's pick. Josh, Evan, who do y'all got winning the finals? Trevor, if you want to start by giving your pick.
I thought mine was clear by now. I have the Los Angeles Lakers.
Josh, who do you got?
Brooklyn Nets.
Charlotte Hornets. I'm just kidding.
I would. The Brooklyn Nets is sad. It is what pains me.
Evan?
I got the Bucks repeating.
Ooh, I like that. All right.
That was my pick.
Wow.
Your 2021-22 NBA champions are the Chicago Bulls. No. I am going to go Nets. I think Durant is one of, if not the best player in the game when he chooses to be. And yeah, he's scary. I'm going to pick the Nets. All right. Cool. So I had a ton of fun. I feel like we could have continued this episode for a few more hours and just continued to talk NBA. The season is upon us. It's starting in just a few short days, but we'll call it a show. Thanks for being here, Josh and Trevor. Any last, if you want to go ahead and plug your socials again, or tell our listeners a little bit where to follow you, any of that stuff?
Fantasy basketball is something we're going to pick up more this year. Obviously, we invited you guys to the league. You mentioned briefly about that, but we'll be posting updates on our social. I want to give a shout out to a couple of guys in there, including you guys. We've got Noel Guerrera in there, a writer for the Cold Wire. We've got the guys from Hoops Damas in there. You guys, like I already mentioned, Fantasy Basketball Land, Mr. Mark, Zach Rager, Betting on the Rocks, Nick Levere from Enable, and the Casual Fan Experience. So a lot of fun group of 8 there. Otherwise, I won't say what it is just yet, but in the coming weeks, I believe, oh my gosh, season starts next Tuesday, doesn't it? Wow. Next Tuesday, we have an exciting announcement coming with the release of our podcast. Won't spoil what it is yet, but it will be coming here shortly. If you guys made it this far, you'll see in a week from now. Josh, I already shamelessly plugged the socials, but Twitter @2pointers.
Yeah. @2pointers on Twitter.
Spelled out TWO.
LaMelo Ball for MVP. That's my hope for the season, and we're just just kidding. But,
yeah. All right, y'all. This has been a lot of fun. Appreciate you. Hopefully we can keep this kind of relationship going back and forth, helping each other out, having a good time. For Evan, I am Dan. We are Domestic Draft. Stay tuned next week. We'll have Clayton LeBlanc on from Epic Brewery out here in San Diego, kind of talk about that whole process. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming on, guys.